Hey guys, my name is Alicia, and if you don't know who I am, I make thrifting videos every single week, and I thought for this week it would be fun to do some summer type thrift flips. Even though we are technically in August now, fall's around the corner, summer's not done yet, so we're going to be doing some summer thrift flips today. So for the first thrift flip, I was just scrolling through TikTok, and I came across this video posted by Vision. I just really fell in love with the style of top that they're wearing, and I just thought it would be so easy to recreate. So that is what we're going to be doing for this first project. So the first thing I did was pick up two different cami tank tops, one in black and one in white, just making sure that they are roughly the same size. You can choose any two colors you want for this project, but I personally just really liked how the black and white looked, so that is what I went for. Next up, you want to layer one of the tank tops over top of the other and kind of just shimmy it in place so that the underlayer is kind of sticking out. Once you're happy with the placement, you can just go ahead and take some safety pins and kind of pin along the edges, just making sure everything is secured in place. Next, I just went ahead and printed off this star shape off the internet. You can definitely freehand draw your own, but this project's already gonna look pretty DIY, so I would definitely recommend going with a template. So once your star's all cut out, you can just place it on the center of your tank top and pin it in place. Once it's pinned, just grab some chalk and outline all of the edges of the star so that when you remove the star, it just leaves a little impression or an outline that you can follow while you're sewing. So before you sew, just make sure you're using a thread that is the same color as your underlayer in order to achieve that contrast stitch look. And it's really important that you set your stitch to a zigzag stitch, making sure the length is kind of around a 1. Next, all you have to do is just go ahead and sew along all of those lines that you drew. I actually ended up completely redoing all of this sewing because, I don't know, my star just turned out a lot bigger than the reference photo. It just looked too big. I didn't like it, so I ended up redoing it and making it a little bit smaller. So if you're not sure what size you're going to do, I definitely lean towards more of the smaller size, especially because it kind of stretches out once you put it on your body. Now that your star is sewn in, you can just take some scissors and carefully cut a little hole in the first layer. And then you can just continue cutting along the edges of the star, revealing the white layer underneath. And lastly, my tank top was quite long. I definitely wanted more of a cropped look, kind of like in the reference photo. So I just took my scissors and chopped off the bottom half. So I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. I think it looks pretty similar to the reference photo, the one that Tunnel Vision created. Although I will say, if you are going to try and make this, try and pick out a tank top that isn't too tight on you, that kind of just fits you, because any sort of stretching is definitely going to be noticeable and it's gonna warp the star. So I definitely had to kind of make some adjustments because of that. And also, if you have any sort of boobs, the star does tend to kind of hide under them, so I would keep that in mind. I feel like the only way around it is to kind of make the star smaller and place it more above your chest, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Either way, I think this one was a success. For the next thrift flip, I've had this cute little green floral midi skirt for quite a while now, and I just always knew I was going to turn it into something. Even though I love midi skirts, I just feel like the texture of this one was kind of giving more office wear vibes. So I thought it would be cute if we could turn this maybe into a 2-piece set. Originally, my plan was to recreate this top, but unfortunately I just realized I did not have enough fabric to recreate it. So I had to switch my plan up and go with something a little more simpler. So I decided that we're just going to turn this into a simple tube top. So I first decided where I wanted the skirt to end and just took a safety pin and marked off that end point. Then I measured the length from the top of the skirt to where that safety pin is, making sure to add a couple centimeters for some seam allowance and just marking that length across the whole skirt. This way I could then connect those dots, giving me a really easy line that I can cut on. So I just took my scissors, followed that line, and cut off the bottom half of the skirt. Once our mini skirt was freed, I just did a simple hem by folding the edge over, ironing it, and then folding it over once more. And then all you have to do is just sew it in place. Now that our skirt is completely done, we can move on to the top. Before we start, you just want to take the remaining piece and quickly make sure that you can fit it over your head, because if it's not going to fit now, it's definitely not going to fit later, so just double check that. But the skirt should be pretty proportionate to your body, so it should work. There will be quite a bit of room left, but we are going to fix that with some elastic. So you want to cut one strand that's going to fit comfortably above your bust, and one that will fit below your bust or kind of like your waistline. Next, the bottom of your skirt should already be hemmed, but we do need to hem the top. So just use the exact same method we used to hem our mini skirt and sew it in place, making sure to just leave a small opening for an upcoming step. Next, I just felt like this top was a little too plain. It was missing something, so I ended up picking up this ribbon, and I thought it would be a cute detail that we could add just to the top of the shirt. When you're working with ribbon, always just make sure to melt the ends so it doesn't end up fraying. But I basically just pinned the ribbon down and sewed it in place, making sure to sew first on the right side and then the left side. Then I also decided to add this cute little bow just to kind of finish off the whole ribbon detail. Then you want to take your elastic from before and secure it on either end with a safety pin. That way we can feed it right through the hem. My skirt did have a slit in it, so at this point I did just go ahead and close that up, which also ended up securing my elastic in place. Then all I had to do was feed my final elastic through the other hem, making sure to tie the two elastic pieces together and just closing up that hole that we left in the hem. And the top is complete. So this is how the set ended up turning out. I do just have to give a quick shout out to Magic Bra for sending me their strapless bra, which I was desperately in need of. And it ended up working out so well for this project because look how terrible it looks without it. Like, this is definitely a moment where you need a strapless bra, especially for us girlies who just aren't comfortable going braless. So I will leave them linked below if you guys are in need of a strapless bra. So you guys let me know how you feel about this set, but I don't know. I'm honestly not too sure about it. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get to go with my original plan because I think that just would have been like so much cuter. And I don't know, I think I realized during this project that I don't really like strapless tops that much. Like, I'm not that into tube tops, so I don't know how much wear I will be getting out of this set. Also, the ribbon is cute, but I feel like with the ribbon, the elastic, it kind of looks like a pajama a little bit. Although I did end up styling it with this little like denim shirt over top, which is kind of like how I envisioned this in the first place. That is definitely closer to how I probably would like end up wearing it, and I think already that looks way cuter. So like I said, I don't know if I will be wearing both pieces together all that often, but I definitely don't regret cutting the skirt because I really like it better as a mini, and I will absolutely be getting wear out of that. And for the last thrift flip, I got super inspired by this girl on TikTok who uses Cyanotype to basically create prints out of flowers onto vintage clothing. Her page is really cool, definitely check her shop out, but I don't know, I thought I could give it a try for myself. But if you don't know what cyanotype is, it's basically a form of printmaking where you apply this solution to clothing or paper and put something on top, and basically whatever does not get exposed to the sun ends up leaving a print. I see it a lot on TikTok usually of like people doing t-shirts from like these digital prints, but I thought the flowers were really, really cool. So because this is my first time trying out Cyanotype, I wanted just to make something small. So I thought I would start off by making a bucket hat. So I started by collecting a few white denim scraps, a picture frame, and of course the Cyanotype solution, which I ended up picking up at my local craft store. It ended up being like 20 bucks. Firstly, you want to prep your fabric in a dark room by mixing the two solutions together and dipping your fabric into it. Now, I didn't really film this whole process because it was in the dark, but this is what my fabric looked like when I left it hanging to dry. You can see that the solution turned it this like yellowy color. So while those were drying, I started prepping my frame. I just happened to already have these dried flowers, so I thought they would work really well for this project. So I just started by placing them onto my picture frame, straight onto the glass, and just kind of like arranging it into a way that I liked. I also ended up adding a few fresh petals as well until I was happy with the design. Then I turned off my lights to try and avoid as much exposure as possible and placed my fabric directly over the flowers and the glass. I then just sandwiched everything together by adding that final layer of glass and putting the picture frame back together. Now, because I don't really have an outdoor space, I thought it would be a good idea to just like lean the picture frame against my window and like figured that should be good. And after about 20 minutes, as you can see, the fabric has turned completely blue. So I removed it from the windowsill and took the frame apart and then just had to give it a really, really good rinse in the sink. Essentially anything that you see there that is yellow will wash away, leaving the white layer underneath. And then of course, any blue is there to stay. And this is how my first piece ended up turning out. It was definitely a little bit messier than I was anticipating. And I think that's due to a few reasons. So the first reason is I was a little bit impatient and I did not let my fabric completely dry after dipping it into the cyanotype. So as you can see, actually, as it was heating up in the sun, the water droplets started to evaporate and it left little like dots on the fabric. In addition to that, because it was wet, it was quite like wrinkled. I couldn't flatten out as good. So all of those little tiny like wrinkles and folds definitely ended up showing up in the print. Also, as you can see, the outlines of my flowers are quite blurry. And that is due to the fact that my frame was not sandwiching the two layers of glass together tight enough. So the flowers were not being pressed directly onto the fabric. So that allowed for light to leak under and just like didn't give us a very good outline. So after figuring all that out with my first little piece of fabric, I decided to switch up my method a little bit. And I took my remaining pieces out to a park where I had a little bit more space to work with everything. So in the shade, I set up my pattern. This time just leaving one pane of glass on top of everything, laying it directly on the ground just to let gravity do its thing. Then I just transferred my whole project over to this table that was in direct sunlight, and as you can see, it started developing right away. You can see it turning that blue color. And once I was happy with the results, I just really quickly removed the glass, removed the flowers, and already this method left it looking so much crisper, like you can really see the outlines of all the flowers. But I quickly just stuffed it away in a little like shipping bag just so that it wouldn't be exposed to the sun on the way home. And once again, I just took it to the sink and rinsed it all out, revealing the print. And although these lines did turn out crisper, the dye was super uneven on this one, kind of giving this sort of like tie-dye effect. And I think that is due to some of the fabric being prematurely exposed to the sun. And so it just kind of ended up a little bit uneven. So all of my pieces definitely came out a lot more abstract than I was hoping, but I did learn a lot from experimenting from this. So now that I had my printed fabric, it was time to assemble the bucket hat. If you've watched my channel for a while now, I have made so many bucket hats. And I filmed the process a couple times, so I'm not going to go over all of that again, so I'll just link a video if you guys like want to see me do that. But I essentially just cut out all the pieces and sewed them together. And this is how it ended up turning out. Not gonna lie, I was so nervous doing this project. Like, I thought this was going to be a complete disaster as I was going through the process, but I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. Like, I feel like the abstractness of it honestly adds to it. And I just think it's really fun. Like, it kind of feels like almost like a cloud, but when you look closer, you do see all of those little prints. Honestly, my favorite is this one right here. It just turned out so crisp, and I actually added that one last minute, so I'm really glad I did that. You can see it's kind of purpley here, but I think that will continue to develop, and hopefully the whole thing will be a little bit more even. But yeah, I'm glad I finally got to give Cyanotype a try. Maybe I'll try it again in the future now that I have a little bit more experience, if you guys want to see that. I also definitely still want to recreate this top, so I will probably do that in a future video as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching me do these thrift flips. Every like a couple months or so, I really get the itch to do like a big bunch of like sewing projects, so I'm glad I got that out of my system. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week.